If you have a true scary story you'd like to share with the channel, go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. And of course, thank you. I have a thing that happened that may or may not be a glitch, though I suppose that there are some rational explanations to it. It's a bit of a non-event, but to me it was an odd moment, and I wanted to share it, in case you all thought that it may have been a glitch. It was a pretty normal morning. I woke up and went to have cereal, but when I opened the fridge, I was hit with an immediate reminder that I needed to get oat milk, that we were completely out. So I got my shoes on and headed out to the closest grocery store, which is unfortunately Walmart. I get there and sit there for a moment or two, and then get out of my car to get into the store. On my way in, a woman walks in front of me to grab a cart from the corral. I can see this woman clear as day. Long brown hair, green shirt, blue jeans, and a backpack that I thought was neat. That's actually why I noticed her at all. The backpack was a dark blue and it had a really nice sunflower pattern on it. And I immediately thought of my wife because it was a design that she would have absolutely loved. That's where the interaction ended. I didn't ask her about it, I just walked in right behind her. She had her empty cart, and we entered the store at the exact same time. After I entered, I walked directly to the right and to the back, which is the length of the store, but this is a Walmart neighborhood market, meaning that it's not a large store. It only takes around 60 seconds to get from the front to the back at a brisk, annoyed in the morning kind of pace. I get to the back, open the cooler, grab 3 containers of oat milk. I buy in bulk when I can, and that was it. I didn't linger, I didn't dally through the aisles, I didn't grab anything else. I got what I came for and walked to the front of the store towards the self-checkout. This is where it got weird. When I walked up to the self-checkout, I glanced over to the register to the left. And who do I see but that same woman with the sunflower backpack? Now, at face value, that's not odd, I know. But it wasn't just that she was there checking out at the same time, it was that she was checking out with a cart full of stuff. I don't mean a dozen or so items. I mean a full-on buying groceries for 2+ weeks filled cart. I saw produce, cereal, dairy, meat, everything from all of the corners of the store. I'm 100% certain that it was her. Long dark hair, green shirt, jeans, and the backpack was unique enough that it stood out. I put the oat milk down and kind of just stared, which I didn't mean to. I just really couldn't comprehend how it was possible. How had she managed to walk around the store and fill the entire cart within around 2 minutes? If it was full of just produce, I could accept it, because she entered and went left towards the produce. But it was items from every section. I scanned and grabbed my oat milk, and paid, and then I walked slowly past the woman, giving her a side glance to see if it was just some really weird coincidence. But there's absolutely no way that it was someone else. There are a few logical explanations I can think of, but there's only one that would logically make sense to me. And that is that she grabbed someone else's cart and walked to checkout right away. There's no way she could have shopped that fast. I'm 100% certain it was not a woman in the same clothing with the same backpack. The only other possible explanation is that I, somehow, stood there in front of the oat milk for an extended period of time. But that would require time to have passed, which it didn't. So, that's my story. It's a small one, but it was seriously bizarre to me, and I have no other possible explanations. If any of you have any other thoughts, please do let me know, but other than that, I hope that you all enjoyed this weird little possible glitch written by me. This is my event. This is the only glitch I've ever experienced, and while it was minor, I hope to not have any more. This experience began in 2019. I was 20 years old and struggling financially. I had an older model Chrysler Pacifica, and I kept having issues with the vehicle. But since the car turned on and the wheels kept turning, I ignored the issues as I didn't have the funds to fix them. One day in 2019, I went out to my garage like any other day. I went to put my keys in the ignition when my finger hit the key slot. I was confused and in complete shock. My key had just vanished. Assuming I must have dropped the key, even though I hadn't heard or felt it, I searched my car for it. Moving the seats, lifting the mats, even recruiting the help of my husband at the time to take apart the center console to see if the key had somehow fallen inside. My car was locked, and I used it to open the door, so I know that I hadn't left the key inside. We searched the garage, around the car, everywhere, but I know 100% that the key was in my hand when I was sitting in my car. My husband suggested that we get another key made, but something was telling me not to drive the car. I don't know how to explain it, it was just a feeling. I refused to drive it. I walked to work for 2 weeks and eventually came up with the money for a down payment on a new car. So it just sat there. After picking up my new car, my husband asked if he could have my old car. We were separated at the time and he did not have one of his own. He thought that I was being overdramatic about not driving the car just because I lost the key. He had a key made and took the car. The very first time he drove the car, the rod that connected the tires snapped. I'm not mechanically inclined, so I have no idea what this is called. The engine was somehow unmounted as well. He had minor injuries as he was only going 10 to 15 miles per hour, but the mechanic had told him that if he were going any faster, he likely would not have survived. I moved across the country in 2020, and I was vacuuming my car after the move. I then heard a tink, and something fell to the floor. I assumed I had knocked something over, so I went to the driver's side to see what had fallen. The key was on the floor. I don't understand how this is even possible. The key was lost before I even purchased this car. The car had been cleaned weekly over the past year, and the key was never there. But somehow this key had reappeared? This is something I think about a lot. I've never told anyone about re-finding this key, as I don't think they would believe me. I still have it, and it sits in my jewelry box, as I can't seem to throw it away. I have never really been one to remember my dreams, and the ones I do remember never mean anything. They're just the really weird ones that don't do anything for me. But about 2 weeks ago, I had a strange dream that stuck with me more than normal. It was a really vivid dream about me getting home from work. I don't live too far from work, a few miles at most, so I've actually taken to riding my bike instead of driving. At least until it gets really hot. Then I'll just take the car. Anyways, in this dream I was biking home, riding in the bike lane and careful not to cause problems for the people in their cars. In this dream I was stopped at a light right next to a white Toyota Prius. I remember that very specifically. I was sitting there, just waiting for the lights to turn green, when I looked over at the Prius and noticed they had a little dog in the back seat that was staring at me. I smiled, thinking it was a cute pup, which caused me to glance back a bit and see that there was a black pickup truck coming in our direction way too fast. I look over and for a split second, I can see the driver. It's some kid, probably 17 at most, and he's staring down at his cell phone, completely oblivious to the car stopped in front of him. I'm just watching this truck barrel toward the red light, thinking that I'm about to see a wreck. But then, at the last second, this kid looks up and sees the stopped Prius and slams on his brakes. However, he doesn't just slam his brakes, he also veers. And guess which direction he veers? Right at me, in the bike lane. Right as I would have been likely killed by this truck, I woke up in a cold sweat with my heart pounding, and I felt like I was having a panic attack. The dream felt real, and the whole thing was absolutely horrifying, but I talked myself out of the stupor. It was a dream, nothing more. Like I said, I don't even remember most of them, so it didn't mean much to me at the time. That day, when I was on my way home, I started again in my normal direction, when I randomly thought about that dream. It kind of freaked me out, and I thought about the fact that I would be heading in the direction of where that dream, I guess, took place. And for some stupid reason, my brain panicked and told me to stop at the CVS near that corner to get something to drink. So I did. I decided that I would go in and get a Powerade instead of going straight home. I rode up to near that stoplight, got up over the sidewalk, and walked my bike to park it outside of the CVS. I was close enough to that light that I could see it, and something told me to look up. There, at the light, was a white Prius, just waiting for it to turn green. I got hit with this weird feeling in my stomach and looked back down the road, thinking that there was no way I would see a black truck. But when I looked, there it was. That black truck going way too fast, and the driver clearly not paying attention. I watched as he got closer and closer, and then heard the squeal of the tires as he tried to not hit the Prius and veered to the right. He clipped the Prius and smashed his truck straight into a streetlight pole on the corner. As I watched him smash his truck into the pole, I kept thinking that I would have been right there. I would have been sitting there between his truck and that light pole, had I not decided to stop at that CVS. One of the clerks ran out of the CVS to ask what had happened, as they'd probably heard the crashing. I mentioned that the truck hit the pole, and they said that they would go call the police to handle it, since it looked like a pretty bad wreck. The kid ended up needing to go to the hospital. He was pretty banged up. The lady and the dog in the Prius, and yes, it was that same dog from my dream, were shaken up, but they were alright. I stood there, honestly shaking, unable to really move from the bike rack. I ended up giving a statement to the police, explaining what I saw from where I was. Then I went in and got my Powerade, just trying to continue living like nothing had happened, like I hadn't barely missed my own demise. So, was this dream some kind of premonition, or quantum immortality where I was put in the same situation a second time? I'm struggling to move past it, but I figured asking this here would be a good idea since the comments seem to always have their own ideas. It was just crazy how detailed the dream was, and how I remembered every little step in the dream, and how, because I had that strange dream, I may have actually avoided a date with the Grim Reaper. I recently started listening to your Glitch podcast, starting with number 74. Thank you. It got me thinking about something that happened to me, female 22, years ago. So long ago that I don't exactly remember my age, but it was between 11 and 14. My mother bought my older sister and I matching purity rings. The only difference is that mine was significantly smaller than my sister's. A purity ring is also known as a chastity ring or abstinence ring, and it's a type of ring worn by some individuals, often teenagers and young adults, to symbolize a commitment to remain sexually abstinent until marriage. The practice is commonly associated with certain religious groups. She bought them online. They came in little boxes with blue silky bags that fit each box perfectly. I never really cared much for the ring, mainly because it was too small for all of my fingers except for my pinky, for which it was too big. Anyway, one day early in the morning, my family packed the car up for an ABKC dog show. Not the typical kind of show that most people think of when you say dog show. There are no tricks. It's more like prancing your dog around to show off the best of each breed. Most of the owners like to keep their dogs in their kennels just to keep them safe from all the other unknown people and dogs. On this particular day, I decided to wear this ring that I didn't care for much, for no reason in particular. It didn't fit, as I mentioned before, but I found this elastic thread, I think from a sweater or something, I don't remember, and I tied the thread around the ring and the other side on my wrist. So when it fell off my pinky, it would bounce and I could put it back on. And shortly after we set up at the show, I decided to look around. All the shows I had been to before were in buildings, but this one was outside under a large metal pavilion with concrete floors. Before I headed off to look at all the brands set up in the booths around the center of a track for the dogs to walk around, my mother noticed the string on my wrist. She said that it looked trashy, to take the elastic band off and throw it away. I tried to explain my reasoning for wearing it, but she insisted on me taking it off, telling me to pocket the ring so I don't need to worry about it falling off. I did as she told me, but instead of putting the ring in my pocket, I put it back on and started walking off. I didn't even make it halfway across the pavilion before I felt the ring slip off of my pinky and heard it bounce on the concrete. I immediately looked down at the floor, searching for a tiny silver ring that was nowhere to be found. I searched everywhere in the area for my ring, including my pockets, just in case it was something else I heard hitting the concrete at the same time my ring came off. But it was nowhere. So, we went home that day without my ring. Fast forward to a few years later, the washing machine in our house overfilled, flooded into my bedroom, and forced us to clear the room and replace the carpet. My parents removed my bed, which left a huge patch of mess on the floor for me to clean, since shoving things under my bed was my go-to. It took forever, but as I made my way through most of the mess, I noticed a little ring lying up against the wall, like it had fallen off and slid underneath my bed. I noticed immediately that it was very small, like mine was. I checked to see if my sister still had her ring, and she did. As a child, the only thing I could think of as an explanation was God or a demon, but a demon made no sense to me. So, God was my only answer. But now that I've had a very long, thorough search of conspiracies, I'm beginning to think it was a glitch. It wasn't until I started listening to your podcast that I made this connection. I just told my dad about that story earlier today. He said maybe it fell in my shoe, but even that made no sense to me. The dog shows lasted for most of the day. I was walking around all day, and I think I would feel something like that in my shoe. Also, I have never and will never be on my bed with shoes on, so how it ended up under my bed is forever a mystery. I don't know what happened to that ring. I've moved several times since I got the ring back. I put it back into the box after that happened, not wanting to lose the gift my mother gave me, but still ended up losing it. If I find it again, it's definitely going to be another glitch in our weird matrix. I'm a post-high school graduate from somewhere in Ontario. My only memorable moment from high school also seems to be my weirdest. About 4 years ago, when I was in grade 10, I wasn't an exemplary student. I was flunking in school and skipping class a lot to smoke weed. Typical for a teenager of that age, I guess, but that's not the point. I had a small circle of friends and weren't necessarily the best influence on me, and were probably the main reason I was failing. One morning I woke up and carried out my morning routine of having a smoke, coffee, and getting ready for school. The day went on as usual, attending every class, barely doing anything, and going to the washroom for a suspicious amount of time. But on that day, my group of friends approached me asking if I wanted to skip with them to smoke. I said yes, and woke up. Yeah, so it turns out I was dreaming. When I got up, I thought, okay, that's weird, and carried on. Turns out that I was doing the same thing as I was in the dream, the same way. Talking to the same people, doing the same things, etc. When I got to the moment that my friends asked me to skip and me saying yes, I woke up again, and was freaking out, terrified that I was stuck in some kind of loop. So, when I got up, I started doing everything different. I skipped my smoke and coffee. I wore different clothes and left earlier and chose to walk to school instead of taking the bus. I felt sick, like I was doing something wrong. I don't know, but something felt really eerie. When I got to school, things got really weird. I was engaging in the exact same conversations from my dream, and already knew the answers to questions that people would ask me before they could finish. It was comparable to waking up with a superpower like telepathy. Everyone seemed very weirded out by me, and a lot of people were telling me that I looked sick. After that, I had the same classes, same work, everything. I actually aced my work pages because I literally did them twice. When third period came and my friend group asked me if I wanted to skip, this time I said no. Everyone looked at me weird, like I shouldn't have said that, or like I went off script. I made some dumb excuse like doing homework or something, and they left. I found out that they actually got arrested later that day because one of them got caught in a sting trying to buy weed. I guess someone or something really didn't want me to go with them, and it still freaks me out to this day. Ask and ye shall receive is all I can say. About a week ago, I asked the universe to give me a glitch in the Matrix driving experience, and here it is. I listen to your stories on the regular and have submitted a few stories myself, but the driving stories get me the most. I really wanted a mind-bending one, too. So, I'm driving to my work on Saturday to get some pet food for my puppies. About halfway there along the highway, the road was blocked off due to a terrible accident that had happened earlier. There were no detour signs up yet, so I followed the traffic and turned left at the lights where things were blocked off. I could have also turned right, but I'm somewhat familiar with the area along that exit, and decided that turning left would be my best bet. So, just to clarify, I'm on the west side of the main road, Highway 12, traveling west, then south a little, west some more, which led me to my next turn. Traffic was traveling to another main road to make a right, which I confused with another road, so I decided to take a right on the road right before it. This road was also traveling north, so at first it seemed correct. As I was driving, though, I noticed that I was moving into a heavily forested area, which I didn't remember from the past when I'd gone this way. There were cars coming every so often, and the road was freshly paved with fresh yellow lines painted on it. So I figured, since I'm traveling in the correct direction, I'll probably find my way eventually. Another minute of driving was leading me to what looked like it might be a conservation area or something like that. So I pulled over. I turned on my GPS thinking that it would tell me to turn around, but it said to keep going the direction I was already driving, so I did. As I was driving, I remained in the heavily forested area and the road eventually turned right and came out to the main road. Now here's where things get weird. Since I was on the west side of the highway traveling west and north mainly until the end when I turned right to get to the main road, I was expecting to make a left turn to continue traveling north. But instead, I was directed by the GPS to turn right, meaning I was on the other side of the highway. I spent the rest of the drive, which was all normal, trying to figure out how I could have ended up on the other side of the highway without crossing it. I know this highway well. I definitely didn't cross from the wooded area. The highway is all farm fields, not forests. Because this was hurting my brain to even comprehend, I pulled out a map to see how this could have happened. And the map showed that I should have ended up on the west side of the highway, not the east. Since this was still stretching my brain yesterday, my teenage daughter and I looked at the concession roads available north of that left turn detour. There was only one concession road, and I know that I didn't drive down it, as it wasn't heavily forested and had a farm that I did not go past. Also, when I looked down the next concession road, which was just north of that one, it was definitely the one that I took. But it looked familiar on the east side, the one I drove down and took a right off of. Heavily forested and freshly paved with bright lines. Not the west side that I should have exited from. We also checked out what was just north of the concession road that we exited from, and there were no more than I could have used. So strange, but I asked for it. P.S. I told my boss when I got to work, and he had the same experience in that area a number of years ago. I will be retracing my steps on a day that I have a little extra time, though. Maybe it'll happen again. I've talked to a number of people about this, and I can't seem to get a logical answer. Fun. Hello. I recently found your podcast and have been listening to all the stories during my routes at work. So my story took place in June or July of 2022, a little after I'd left the military and moved in with my parents, until I could find my own place. I remember the day being completely normal, and I went back to my room and tried to go to sleep. I was almost asleep when I suddenly heard a loud explosion from the garage, and I jumped up from my bed with my heart pounding. At the sound of the explosion, my 2 dogs and my mom's 1 dog, all of whom were in bed with me, also jumped up and started barking. I then noticed smoke in my room, and I automatically assumed the worst had happened. I remembered my brothers and my cousin were in the garage, so I ran to the door, threw it open, and ran to the stairs where I basically barreled into my little brother. He grabbed me and noticed my sheer panic and told me to calm down, and asked what had happened. I recounted what had happened, and reiterated, "There was an explosion. I'm not crazy. There was smoke, the dogs were barking." I asked him if everyone was okay and what happened, and tried to run past him again to check, when he grabbed my shoulders and told me to calm down, that nothing had happened, and everyone was okay. So I took a step back, and my legs gave out underneath me, and I fell to the stairs behind me, trying to catch my breath and calm my racing heart. After I'd calmed down a little, my brother helped me up, and I told him that I needed to check for myself. So I walked downstairs, and as he said everything was normal, nothing looked amiss, and there was definitely no explosion. So I walked back upstairs with my dogs and tried to get back to sleep. Since then, I've wondered if I had actually died in that dimension, and myself, along with my dogs, traveled to the one that I'm currently in. I started noticing little changes in the dimensions, like people who had died years prior suddenly dying again, new song lyrics that were never a part of the songs I knew in my world, etc. I've tried reaching out to others for some guidance, but that's my only explanation I have for what happened that day. Anyways, thank you for reading my story, and if you end up using it, I appreciate that. Take care. So that, my friends, was this week's Glitch in the Matrix collection of Glitch in the Matrix stories. Stories that prove that our simulation is in dire need of a software update. Who is managing this thing? Who is the server admin on our existence? Because they are far behind. Did they get fired? Did they get fired and refuse to give up their password? Did the company not have a good secure platform manager and not have any sort of password managing software, so the managers cannot access the server? And they're afraid to do a full reboot on it, or do a full, not reboot, but full reinstall of our system, of our simulation's operating system? Because that's what they're going to have to do. Hopefully they have a good backup of the files, but they can't access the server. Maybe we'll all find out. Maybe there'll be a day where we're all just sitting here and then every single person, all 8 billion of us, is it 8, 7, however many, just all have a few seconds where everything just blips. We all notice it. We all wake up from this random slight darkness that happens randomly all across the world. But then life just keeps going. And things are a little less buggy. Unless it's running Windows 10, in which case, it's going to stay buggy for a while. Yeah. Anyways, friends, hopefully you all enjoyed these stories. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button. There was one story in this that was a little closer to home, if you hadn't noticed. Yes, I wrote that story. And yes, that actually happened to me. I didn't write it for the fun of it. It was not written as fiction. That is something that occurred in my life whenever I went to have Raisin Bran a couple weeks ago. And I wanted to write it up because I said, however long ago in a live stream, that if I ever had a glitch story to share with you guys, I would write it up and share it. There you go. That is technically my second glitch story. The first one I never wrote up because it wasn't an event, it was a non-event. And that is whenever we went to Texas, I stole a placard from Whataburger. I'm sorry, Whataburger. I was younger. I was stupid. I'm still stupid, but not younger. I was younger and I was just a kid. I was just silly. I was having a bad time, okay? It was a bad year. We went to Texas to go see a band perform that we both loved for an album release. They did. It was fantastic. Then the next day we went to Whataburger because my family, who is from Texas, my brother-in-law specifically, told me that when you're in Texas, you have to go to Whataburger, even though they now have them here in Kansas City area. So I don't really have to go to Texas anymore. Anyways, we got there, we got our order, and our placard was number 42. Now, those of you who know me personally, so none of you, would know that 42 has significant meaning to me. 42 is the answer to life, the universe, and everything, the great question, the ill-defined question, more so, that was asked to the great computer in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So 42 had a slight meaning to me, because I love the stories. But anyway, so I took the placard home, like a jerk that I am. I put it in my glove box, and if we got in my car, I kept it, I brought it home, put it in a drawer, because it's a piece of plastic. It's not something you really need to keep, but it was fun to have. Put it in a drawer anyways. Whenever we moved, I found it in the drawer, and whenever we cleaned out the kitchen, and it says 43. 43 has no meaning to me. I would not keep something that says 43. It means nothing to me. So now I have a placard that says 43, and I don't know why I have it. So yeah, there's that. I've gone on for way too long. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard, please consider subscribing. You can also join Patreon memberships to get early access to content like this and other things. You can submit your stories at astheravendreams.com. Listen on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Audible, and other platforms, wherever you want to listen. I'm probably there. And then we can move on to the word of the week. Sorry, that was really fast, but it's already been 4.5 minutes. On the screen right now, and several moments prior to now, is a collection of all the beautiful people who left me comments using last week's word of the week. All of these wonderful people went above and beyond, used the word in a comment, and because of that, their comments are now on the screen. So, thank you to each and every single one of you who left me a comment. You all are amazing. Always appreciated. If you didn't leave a comment, that's totally fine. I get it. It's not a necessity. But anyways, thank you again to all of them. Let's move on to this week's word of the week. This week, the word of the week is stoic. S-T-O-I-C. Stoic has two very simple definitions. One, apparently or professedly indifferent, and not affected by or showing passion or feeling. So a stoic person is very stone-faced, very default character in their emotions, if that makes sense. So I am not stoic. I am an emotional person. I do not qualify for stoicism. Do not call me stoic in the comments. Good luck to all of you using the word. See it next week whenever I do that one. Yeah. Hopefully, I see you guys again here very soon, but until then, remember, you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you are the best you that you can be. Do not forget it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And until next time, my friends, much love, 6-minute outro, holy crap, and sleep well.